this mixing masterclass, we're looking at how we can use short delays to add tight space around sounds. The delay timings range from about 40 milliseconds to 100 milliseconds, so they're shorter than the traditional Elvis slapback echo, which is about 135 milliseconds, but longer than the Hass effect, which is up to about 30 milliseconds. The core concept is that a short delay with minimal or no feedback replicates the early reflections you hear in a space. This is the same concept you find in the first stage of a typical algorithmic reverb, so-called early reflections. By adding a delay or delays from scratch, you're creating a simpler, more easily editable version of this, and also not getting drawn into editing a reverb, of course. Vocals are ideal for this sort of treatment, as you can keep them reasonably upfront and also blend in a small amount of longer reverb if required. Let's start with the simplest option, which is a single mono delay, using our delay as an insert. First thing to do with our delay is make sure that it's not synced to the DAW tempo. Then set the feedback to 0 and the wet level to 0 as well. Our starting delay for this effect is about 40 milliseconds. And we've then blended this in using the wet level of the delay, so the dry level is 100% and the wet level for us is around 20%.
You used to burn.
This adds tight space around the vocal, but make sure you bypass to contrast and compare.
Why can't you show me? I can lead you back to light.
Now let's try a stereo delay. We're going to continue with vocals, but this time use an auxiliary for the delay plugin. Once again, zero the feedback of both sides and deactivate the tempo sync if engaged. Now set each delay with an offset between them. We've set ours to 50 milliseconds to the left and 70 milliseconds to the right. Gradually increase the send to the delay and you'll hear a small space appear, but this time with some width.
Can I find you? You used to burn so bright. Why can't you show me? I can lead you back to life.
Set the send level to taste, and much like reverb, modest amounts work best.
Can I find you? You used to burn so bright.
Short delays can also work very well with beats, so let's stick with the stereo delay effect but repurpose it. Snares and backbeats generate obvious clattery room reflections in real spaces, and we can easily create these using delays. Start with timings that are quite similar. Here we're using 50 milliseconds on the left and 40 milliseconds on the right. We're processing a hip-hop backbeat. As we increase the send level, it gets wider, bigger and more smeared. And it's only at high send levels that the delays are obvious. So we'll back away from those levels. The same kind of processing also works really well with drum kit snares, providing useful depth, particularly if the room mics aren't really delivering. Here we've set the delay times to 60 milliseconds on the left and 40 milliseconds on the right, and filtered off just the low frequencies in the delays, so the high pass is set to about 1 kHz. This creates a slightly clattery sound. Finally, in addition to filtering the delays, we can also use other processing such as modulation and distortion. Sticking with our snare effect, we've inserted our favourite distortion plugin after the return and dialed in some extra grit.